Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this panel for laying out a new vision for EdTech Accelerators. I'm going to introduce our co-panelists in a minute. My name is Sandro Olivieri. I run the AT&T Aspire Accelerator program, and I also run a nonprofit called Project Found Ed, which I'll go over in a minute. But I wanted to take a couple minutes to just lay out what we see the industry looking like right now and what has necessitated a new vision for EdTech Accelerators. EdTech is an incredible industry. It's an industry marked by passion in its founders, in its investors, in its educators. The passion leads to lots of amazing organizations being created constantly in so many parts of the world. This amazing creative energy is driven by another unique aspect of our industry. Every person has had a lived experience in the education industry. There's so many incredible outcomes just from this truth alone. EdTech founders can be anywhere, and they are. The problems that EdTech founders work on are extremely varied, from teacher effectiveness, revolutionizing PD, disrupting test prep, improving access to higher education, and lots of others. The folks that start EdTech companies are extremely diverse and reflect the diversity of our student populations. This global community of EdTech founders is one I would bet on day of the week to innovate in the sector and tackle the challenges that it faces. And the challenges are many. The journey creating and scaling companies in EdTech is far from easy, however. There are myriad challenges, starting from the very get-go. And they include things like from foundations to VCs to schools themselves. There's simply not enough money to support a rich and innovative EdTech startup ecosystem. The funding that does exist is inequitably applied to those with more social capital, and those folks tend to be male and white, a stark contrast from the diverse populations that start EdTech companies. The city you might live in when you start your company might not have the best startup ecosystem to support you in your fledgling days. Because there are very few EdTech only VCs, they have the liberty to invest almost exclusively in later growth rounds and invest in higher growth areas like early childhood and higher education, often leaving entire sectors like K-12 behind. Foundations that support EdTech are few and large. They tend to dictate the impact work they'd like to see, leading to a lack of operational funds for impactful nonprofits. Foundations and schools also demand EdTech companies show efficacy before entertaining funding opportunities. Meanwhile, good efficacy studies are maddeningly expensive, creating a frustrating chicken and egg for founders. The funding pipeline generally is skewed towards later rounds with sparse opportunity in early stages. Like I said, lots of problems, but we're all here to try and help fix them and move this industry forward. I think my co-panelists would agree that thinking through these solutions factor directly into the design of all of our programs. I think they would also agree that all these problems are symptomatic of a larger problem in our industry, lack of collaboration. So that's what this panel is. The new vision for EdTech Accelerators is to collaborate to ensure we are all collectively serving EdTech entrepreneurs and by extension, the industry better. We will not really be answering specific questions about how to get into our respective programs or what they offer, so you can feel free to reach out directly to us through our website if you have specific questions. The folks you'll be hearing from today run programs that support founders at various stages of maturity, and they'll speak to the kinds of challenges and opportunities successful founders are focused on at those stages. So I'll let them introduce themselves and their programs, and we'll go Ben, Katie, Raphael.
Hey everybody, I'm Ben. I run operations for LearnLaunch Accelerator in Boston.
Hi, my name is Katie Booty. I am founder and CEO of LeanLab Education. We are based in Kansas City, Missouri.
Hey everyone, I'm Raphael. I work at 4.0 based in New Orleans, but we work nationally with a lot of folks. It's really exciting to get to talk with you a little bit about kind of what we're thinking and what we're learning as an organization. So kind of building on what Sandro just said, right? Like, what do you do as a founder when you're just starting out, when you just have an idea and you have this compelling idea, but there's really no VC or philanthropic funding that's really available for your work? As Sandro articulated in the challenge, right? This is this is the case for most people in education founding ideas, but it's especially true for people that are not white and not male. The good news is that when ideas are just getting started and they're just getting off the ground, which is where my organization really focuses, money is a lot of times not the most important thing for folks. What is most important is that people really learn how to build momentum through community and build connections with their community that are authentic and that demonstrate that the problem that they're working on is real and that the people that matter really love what they're building. And that's how we break the cycle in our mind at the beginning of this process, right? By doing that, you really open up all sorts of avenues to build something much more compelling and better for families, but also to really get access to those later kinds of funding that my colleagues are going to talk about here. So what we've done at 4.0 is really redesign our whole programming structure around this whole idea of how do we get people to build that early, local, authentic momentum that is community-based and really helps ideas grow and thrive. And so that really for us means helping people run really high quality, but early and small pilots of their ideas. And that can be as simple, especially when it comes to EdTech, as helping people create really strong paper prototypes that they show to their families and teachers in their community or whoever it is that they want to work with. It can then be helping them build a very lo-fi version of it. By doing those kinds of things and then getting really systematic, structured feedback from the people that matter most, which is the people that you want to work with, you're then putting yourself in a position to get really great feedback and build well. But most importantly, you're lowering the risk to those families, right? You're not trying something out that hasn't at scale that hasn't really been proven. You're building a lot of respect and trust among those people. You're lowering the risk to yourself because you probably haven't quit your job unnecessarily to work on an idea that isn't fully baked. You're lowering the risk to any partners you might have, like nonprofits or schools. And it's really giving you a community of people that are around your idea, that are there to support you, push you, and advocate for you as you do it. And the best part, as we've all talked about already, is it's cheap. It doesn't cost a lot of money. And so at the end of this good early stage piloting that we support folks to do, hopefully you've built this authentic, real, passionate community of people that are all excited about the work that you're doing. And they are the people that most likely are going to be there to potentially purchase and give you that first stream of revenue that you need to start proving to folks like my colleagues on this call that you really are legitimate and that you are ready for larger kinds of investment. And I would just point out, this all starts again with this authentic, community-based, community-led approach that really incorporates the voice of the people that you want to work with. And then you move on to later things that my colleagues are going to start sharing with you.
Sandro from the AT&T Aspire Accelerator here again. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the next logical step and what Raphael was talking about, and that's the importance of revenue for early stage companies. We're all going to say this a lot, and it's going to feel like a trend, and it's because it is. The reality of our industry is that there's just simply not enough money invested in it to ensure that we are a thriving and innovative edtech startup ecosystem. And that's true across the sector, but it's particularly acute in K through 12. There are very few exclusively edtech venture capitalists, and fewer every day in K-12. And they are incentivized to invest in later rounds and sectors that return their investment a little quicker, like early childhood and higher education. Not much quicker, but quicker. The pandemic has changed a lot, but from a funding perspective, it has changed very little. More VC money has come into the sector this year, but most of that money has gone into growth rounds or propping up incumbents, and so the numbers are a little bit misleading. Additionally, the only real bets being made right now are in direct-to-consumer education apps. So if you're selling to schools, it's been difficult to raise money. The truth is that if you're building an edtech product that hopes to sell to schools, you should not be planning on raising VC money. The reason is because the education technology sector does not really work like other technology sectors in a few important ways. For the most part, the only exits in edtech or events where investors might make their money back are through acquisition. And there are precious few EdTech IPOs. So many investors will optimize for the kinds of companies that they could see go at it alone, right? Not depend on acquisition and really return in a big way. Sales cycles are extremely long. No matter what part of the education system you're in, it takes a long time to close a deal, especially one of consequence. Your user is typically not your buyer, making the sales cycles even longer. If your user is probably a teacher or a student, they are very rarely the one who will be paying you for a software license. Lots of folks have successfully figured out ways to convert those users into evangelists for a sale, but this complication just adds substantial levels of difficulty to building a successful tech business. So what do? You can't depend on investment. Well, it means that you should build your business not expecting it and not depending on VC investment. It doesn't mean that there aren't other opportunities for funding. There might be some local incentive programs in the state or city you live in, grant programs associated with universities, local governments, pitch competitions, et cetera. But the number of people actually receiving VC funding in EdTech, especially in the pre-seed and seed stages in EdTech, is very, very low. So don't expect it, don't depend on it. So if you can't depend on an investment like this, the only road for you will be to build revenue, to build resilience through building revenue. And that's what we try and focus on at the AT&T Aspire Accelerator is, traditional accelerators will get you ready for a pitch for additional funding. What we do is work on your business fundamentals to make sure you're ready to build revenue so that you don't have to raise as much money, if at all. And I don't want the nonprofits listening to think they're off the hook. The grant funding ecosystem is in a very similar state, and you're going to have to build an earned revenue strategy. If you're only depending on grant funding or plan on only depending on grant funding, you're going to have a very tough road. And building earned revenue is going to be a way for you to continue to have the impact that you want to have in the long run. The most maddening thing about all of this is that as soon as you've figured out a good revenue generating strategy, that's when investors start to be interested in what you're doing. And that's a good thing. I don't think any of us are trying to denigrate or disparage venture capital or foundation money with our talk. In fact, it is a critical piece of making sure this ecosystem works well. We simply need more of it. And as more money comes into the sector, we hope to raise up this issues as we see it so that they can apply their capital in the right places. And I'll kick it over to Ben to talk a little bit about the best way to build revenue.
Thank you, Sandro. Really quickly to introduce, I'm Ben. I run operations for the LearnLaunch Accelerator in Boston. LearnLaunch serves the greater Boston and New England area in supporting the growth of the EdTech space more broadly. The accelerator that I represent, we invest in early revenue stage EdTech companies. That includes K-12, it includes higher ed and workforce. We work to support companies specifically who are beginning to achieve product market fit or helping them achieve product market fit, beginning to scale and then preparing for investment. So we are the sort of next step to some of the things that 4.0 and AT&T are teaching. Similar to Sandro, we agree for the need of revenue. It's the only path to success for EdTech startups early on. You can't traditionally count on early stage investment dollars to float the boat. Unlike some other industries that you might get a check right out of the gate with an idea. We also agree with Raphael in using your community to build a customer-centric product. And that's our sweet spot, is building on those things and transitioning some of the work, the foundational work that these companies do at 4.0 and AT&T into something that's repeatable and scalable. We spent the past few years building out this model to fit where it's needed the most in the EdTech startup ecosystem. And those things have happened through conversations and understanding of where other people are and other organizations are supporting EdTech startups, like the folks on this panel. I remember reaching out to or having a conversation with someone from LeanLab 4 years ago, and they were just starting to get going. And we've just been in constant contact ever since. And it's just a wonderful thing to be able to share ideas and pass people back and forth when necessary. I'm going to talk really quickly about the LearnLaunch program, and not to promote it, but more to highlight some of the things we look for so people can understand that component. we find that by the time founders come to us, they typically spend significant time designing a product first solution. And this is not always the case. And certainly if they come out of some of the other programs, they're more customer centric. But we do find that a lot of companies come to us and they've made one of the pivotal pitfalls in building a business, which is, you're building a product that you think is necessary, not that's built based on the customer. And we find that that means that the founders they've needed additional resources that they probably didn't actually need, but because of the way they've approached the problem, they need more. They believe they need more financial support and more human support far sooner than if they led with a customer centric model. There are steps you can take today, tomorrow, and the next day that don't require a team, investment capital, or an accelerator if you're out there to sort of serve the community first and understand what the problem is and self-build. It's also important to note that when I say we look at companies for product that have product in market and revenue, it's not because we particularly care how much revenue you have. We care what the revenue represents. As an early stage investor, we care that the companies have built something that someone wants to pay for, and that's the really interesting part, is that someone's willing to give their hard-earned dollars. A person or a school, most likely a school, give their hard-earned dollars for your product, and that's a really interesting signal for us. And so we help them. We take that success and we run with it, and we help it grow. And while our support and the support of the folks on the panel, that while it's great and really helpful to the companies who get it, it's not enough. And you've seen, and we'll continue to see on this panel, that each of us focuses on a specific job and role in supporting EdTech startups. And that's really a factor of what we can pull off and achieve. We are all pretty small organizations. And so there's only so much we can actually do. Collectively, we've identified the need for additional support in the EdTech space, not just a select group of companies we work with through these programs, but on a broader scale. We need more organizations and capital lifting the right initiatives up and creating additional ones at all of our stages. We can't be the only ones who are investing in or working with 5 to 10 companies or 15, whatever number of companies. Some, you can count on your hands every year. We need more help. We at LearnLaunch Accelerator are currently working to figure out how to democratize some of the things that we have. We've historically delivered most of our resources to our. That seems like that's a wonderful thing for them. But how can we support a broader set of folks? I know there are other folks in the ecosystem who are also thinking about that, but we need more, right? And from the conversations we've had with everybody in the room, this has allowed us to push forward and start to identify some new things that we can do. With that, I'm really excited to introduce Katie, who has built a fantastic nonprofit that works with early stage companies to validate the effectiveness of their products. And she's worked with lots of LearnLaunch companies. So I'm really excited to have her tell you more. Thank you.
All right. Hi, my name is Katie Booty, and I am a founder CEO here at LeanLab Education. We're a nonprofit based in Kansas City, but we work with companies both nationally and internationally. And real quick, before I get into more about what we do, we've had this consistent theme throughout this conversation, kind of drilling home this idea that you can just go and raise millions of dollars off of a sexy concept in EdTech if you're trying to serve K-12 classrooms just isn't reality. There's a need to start first by really understanding the problems in the sector and getting really close to teachers, students, and parents who have those problems, to build a product that's loved and easy to use by those communities, and then to really bootstrap for a while to prove that your concept or your product has some legs. And that's typically the pathway to success in K-12 EdTech. That being said, what we realized at LeanLab, we started out earlier stage working closely with 4.0 and LearnLaunch as a kind of another traditional accelerator. This idea that if we just surround people with exciting concepts, with mentorship and some seed funding and some pitch decks, that they'll be able to take off. And that just wasn't the case. So what we're really excited about talking about is developing this staircase to ecosystem. What that means then for now at LeanLab, now that we're in our 8th year, we've now evolved to really focus on helping entrepreneurs develop products that are evidence-backed and that are positioned for scale. So what we do is we help EdTech companies, typically companies that have raised a seed round or Series A or are in market, have some early traction, have a solid initial product. We pair those to a network of school districts we have curated throughout the Midwest. Our research team then measures the impact of these products in real schools and gives the insights from teachers, parents, students back to the entrepreneur to refine the product and make it better. Our entrepreneurs end up with a research report and a badge. We call this whole process co-design. And our theory is that if entrepreneurs are designing products that are really moving the needle for students, are demonstrating impact, and are products that are genuinely needed by the school environment, that they will scale. And we can then share those products across our network of schools to help get that flywheel going. So that's in a nutshell what we do. I think the big takeaway we want to hit home is that there is an ecosystem of support for founders in EdTech. We are in a unique environment. That being said, we are all here to collectively get the best things for kids in as many classrooms as possible. I'll pass it off to Sandra to close us out.
Thanks, Katie. I hope. I mean, look, the unfortunate truth of the matter is that the EdTech industry itself is a little bit inefficient right now. We've seen it just being on the front lines of supporting early stage companies. But we have adjusted our programs to make sure that we can support collaboratively the ecosystem generally and move us all forward. And I don't want you all to get us wrong, right? We don't think they're bad actors in the education industry, right? Foundations have a noble goal of funding impactful things, typically at the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is good. VCs in EdTech are largely here because of passion for the industry and are doing a good job of returning their funds successfully. That is what their job is, and they're doing a good job of it. Schools themselves are doing the best they can to run a building, engage their communities, and educate kids. EdTech founders are an incredible group of people following their passions to create meaningful change. Lots of amazing people in the education sector doing amazing things, following their mission. And every one of these groups has the same ultimate goal: to create more equitable learning outcomes for all our students through technology. The problem is that without working together across VCs, foundations, schools, and EdTech founders, we don't really get a clear picture of whether or not we're being successful in working towards that ultimate goal that we all share. Not only do we need new entrants to help invest in this ecosystem, we need a ton more collaboration to ensure that we're doing that, what we set out to do as an industry. So I hope you'll take that from us today, is that this is the new vision, at least for this small part of the EdTech ecosystem, which is the EdTech accelerators you've heard from today, and that is to collaborate as much as possible. I have never felt like I competed with these other programs for startups, for funding, for really anything. From the day I've met the folks on this panel, we've collaborated from day one. And we've all seen what's going on in industry and evolved our programs over the years to ensure that we are serving EdTech entrepreneurs throughout their life cycle. You heard from Raphael at the beginning, from me in the pre-seed seed stages, and then from Ben and Katie more in the seed Series A stage. We talk often, we trade notes, and we often support the same orgs that we think should get a shot at success. And this year, we are putting our efforts into something new. We started a new organization with the support and collaboration of my colleagues on this panel called Project FoundEd. And FoundEd hopes to be an organization that can lead to increased collaboration in our industry. We're banding all EdTech founders together to highlight all the problems that we've talked about today, and also create a platform to celebrate the great work being done. Ultimately, we hope it can be a platform to collaborate across stakeholders, foundations, VCs, schools, and entrepreneurs to help keep this sector aligned to our North Star, equitable learning outcomes for all of our students. So if you're an EdTech founder, please sign up at projectfounded.org or reach out to me if you'd like to learn more. Thank you so much for joining us on this panel. I hope you got a lot out of it. Like I said, we didn't answer a lot of specific questions about our program, but if you still have questions about that stuff, you can reach out to us at our website. Thank you, panelists, for everything, and thank you for joining.